For my class of Human Resources Management, I will talk about the book Essentials of Managing Human Resources, and I will talk about this chapter 2. I won't take the way of talking about a company that does all the things they say in the book. I prefer to talk about human rights, harassment, discrimination, and pay equity and give examples for harassment and discrimination. So, first, I will begin with human rights. Human rights are moral principles and norms that are known as fundamental rights. It is one of the most, not to say the most important document of all times. It prohibits certain human behavior and it also applies to all human beings. It is a foundation of many laws like the pay equity. It prohibits discrimination, saying that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity rights. It put an end to slavery. It is also in the middle of many debate about assisted suicide, death penalty, and abortion because it is said that everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. So moving on to harassment. Harassment can be any unwanted physical or verbal conduct that offends or humiliates a person. To be called harassment, it is not important whether it occurs once or several times. It is unacceptable and illegal in any case. Harassment is not just between an employee and his employer, it can be between two employees or between an employee and a client. Before taking actions on a complaint of harassment, the person in charge has to ask himself if a reasonable person would think it was an offending action or not because it is a serious accusation. Actions must be taken against the person who committed this wrong behavior if you think that the answer of the previous question is yes. The Canadian Human Rights Commission definition of harassment is any unwanted physical or verbal conduct that offends or humiliates you. Such conduct can interfere with your abilities to do a job or obtain a service. Harassment is a type of discrimination. It can take many forms such as threats, intimidation, or verbal abuse, unwelcome remarks or jokes about subjects like your race, religion, disability, or age, displaying sexist, racist, or other offensive pictures or posters, suggestive remarks or gestures, inappropriate physical contact such as touching, patting, pinching, or punching, physical assault including sexual assault. Now I'm going to talk about the Ashley Alford case. So Ashley Alford was a lady that started working for Aaron's Inc. in 2005. That's when the store manager started to harass her sexually. So it started off by touching her breast and making bad comments about her, and it went all the way into, I will show you, all the way into pushing her down into a sofa and lifting up her shirt and masturbating on top of her. So we can see that this shouldn't happen. This is totally insane, and in the workforce it should really not happen. This is a sexual harassment. This is a proof that it still exists nowadays. Although the lady stopped this action by suing the company in 2008, she actually received $98 million for this, for like the 2 years she was in the company, for all the damage she had, like physical and psychological damage. So we can see that yes, we are more open minded nowadays, but we can still have harassment in the workforce and we must not let this happen. You can do something about it. You can take them to the justice and you can face the problem. So that was all for harassment. Now I'm going to talk about discrimination. Discrimination is the practice of unfairly treating a person or a group of people differently than other people or other groups of people. It is the essence of the human rights legislation and it is illegal. The four prohibited grounds of discrimination in employment are race or color, religion, physical or mental disability, and dependence on alcohol or drugs. We could also add gender, age, and sexual orientation. Discrimination can be such as having the same physical test for men and women because science proved that men have more physical abilities than women. We saw a case about a lady that was in that was a fireman for 2 years, and then they changed the test, and it was totally biased for the men because it was the same test for a girl and a guy. So then the lady could not be a fireman anymore. So she took them in on a front of the justice and she won the case. Um, And we can even face discrimination during the hiring process if the questions asked are judged inappropriate or biased. For example, in 2009, a 42-year-old man won his discrimination case. He was sacked by the company because he was judged too old. The company hired a 38-year-old man to replace him. Then the man went to take the company to the court and he won $75 in damage for unfair dismissal. So again, we can see that if we are going through discrimination in the workforce or still harassment, again, we can take actions against it. Last but not least, pay equity. So the meaning of pay equity is equal pay for work of equal value. Two principles are in the middle of the pay equity. The first is equal pay for equal work, which means that if you are a girl and you have the same job a man has, then you are paid the same amount regardless of your sex. The second principle is that two persons with a comparable job value in the organization will get the same wage. Pay equity legislation has been created because historically women have been paid considerably less than men. There still are some cases that women are paid less than men, but the law is there to reduce the gap between the two sexes. The law is based on the Canadian Human Rights and it is regulated by the Employment Standard Act. It applies to all workforce under its legislation, regardless of the number of employees, which means that a company may have only 3 employees, they don't have the choice to apply the pay equity. It is a complaint based system, so a union, a group of employees, or one single employee can raise complaints, although it doesn't mean that the problem will be solved quickly because it has been seen in the past that some cases took many years before finally coming to a conclusion. Not every province in Canada apply the pay equity, as we can see in Alberta or British Columbia. So to sum up the chapter, I would say that everything like harassment, discrimination, and pay equity, all the laws that are prohibiting those actions come from the human rights, which is, I think, the most important things we can relate on in every case we have in life or in the workforce. So those are all things that are still happening. We are trying to decrease the numbers of complaints and everything. That's what you should do in a business. But we have to remember that it still exists and we can take actions against it. So thank you for watching, listening.